really quickly, who won the weekend? Anybody?
I did.
Oh, we got 3 hands up. I know we got Universal.
Enough said.
No, but you ditched school, and I didn't get a form saying it was an educational opportunity, and you ditched teammates who needed you.
You didn't tell either of us you were going.
Mary. Yes, you did go to your sister's graduation. Thank you for sending me that picture. Yes.
Oh, I went to my sister's.
Where?
Oh,
yeah. Okay.
Throwing and like gem mining, and it was fun. We did
Axe throwing and gem mining. All right. Hopefully not at the same time.
No.
All right, because that might be a challenge. All right. Anybody out there think they won the weekend? Any of you people? Ben, why are you not here? Not Cashwell, the other Ben. He's also sick.
Always at the beach.
Thank you for being honest. Go ahead and turn your camera on. How come Ferris can ditch, but no one else can? All right, anyway. Okay. Here we go. And I'll make sure I edit all this first part of this conversation. Oh, wait, what's this? Oh, he's coming home. Okay. The Arab-Israeli conflict. Israeli conflict. Right there. Okay. All right. The Arab-Israeli conflict has deep roots in history, no way, and remains a tense and often violent struggle today, literally today in Israel, with control of Palestine at its heart. That is correct. And as it relates to the sheer existence of the state of Israel. Again, and to contextualize this, we're going to get some nice 19th century background, but then start thinking about the Ottoman Empire, the Young Turks, and how those various Muslim nations tried to Westernize, and they said no. And all right, moving on. So much stuff to connect. Come on, there we go. In 73 CE or AD, depending upon which you prefer, I don't care. CE means Common Era. Why is there difference? People who don't want religion in their history. Jews were expelled by the Romans. This is the diaspora. Any group of people spread out going to other places is a diaspora. Irish have had a diaspora. You could argue any group that's immigrated to America, it's probably some semblance of diaspora. But this is a pretty popular one. Only a small Jewish presence remained in Palestine. Because the Romans kicked them out because they were troublemakers. Because you can't worship God and Caesar, especially when in Roman law, Caesar is a god. That's ultimately what got that very famous Jew, Jesus, into trouble. All right. Theodor Herzl, one of the founding members of Mumford and Sons. No, I'm kidding. Founded the Zionist movement. Anybody know what a Zionist is?
No idea.
Thanks for your honesty.
Is it like pro-Jewish?
Beyond that, it's beyond just being pro-Jewish.
Oh,
You think? Right. So you think about like a zealot. Like the Zionists really believe in Judaism. Really believe in this idea of a Jewish state. And this was in the face of growing, I don't know how much larger, we all do know how much larger this anti-Semitism is going to get in Europe, but growing anti-Semitism in Europe towards the end of the 19th century. Don't forget, it's also right here. I know I walked around getting away. It's also low. All right. In fact, this was this class's idea. All right. Maybe you're right.
Ben's reading it.
Yes, Ben.
So we're Zionists and
Can't hear you.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Go ahead. I just turn my camera and speakers up.
So could Jewish people also be Zionists and Zionist people also be Jewish? Or were they two separate things?
This was a pretty much mutually inclusive. This is pretty much a Jewish thing. Zionists are Jewish.
Okay, got it.
Yep. We have an important task before us. We have met here to lay the foundation stone of the house that will someday shelter the Jewish people. We have to secure legal international guarantees for our work. They're trying to create, as way back as 1894, some semblance of a homeland of a state. The Zionist movement sought to restore a Jewish state in Palestine. It says Israel now. But that wasn't Israel until not now. Where the ancient Jewish kingdom once existed. In the interest of communication and dialogue and discussion, why?
Why?
Why there? Yeah.
Because that was like their historical location.
Okay. Why not?
Why not?
There.
Because the Arabs are there.
Yeah, because people live there. Okay, so you have, that's the crux of this whole conflict. The Jews want land that they say is their ancestral homeland. Meanwhile, there are people like are living here thousands of years. Yes. Oh, that was hair. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, Jewish immigration to Palestine began slowly. The first Aliyah, so the first group of Jewish settlers into Palestine begins. A trickle, a drip. And now that I have the speaker volume up, I've been able to hear the hands go. Thank you for telling me that was great. All right. There they come. Strapping young lads. All right. The ultimate goal is in time to take over the land of Israel and to restore the Jews the political independence they've been deprived of for these 2,000 years. To take over the land. The Jews will yet arise and, arms in hand, if need be, declare that they are the masters of their ancient homeland. So this is well before the Holocaust. I think that's an important thing to understand. That this idea of a Jewish state, of a Jewish homeland, predates the Holocaust by half a century. Holocaust is pretty much just what sort of like fast passes the whole process. Not trying to alarm you, Sam. Not trying to make you nervous. Friends of ours went down to Disney and Universal over spring break. We ran into them. They all came back with COVID after going to Universal. Just letting you know. All right. Only because Universal had no distance, no crowd limits or anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. All right. Jewish settlement in Palestine caused resistance, violence, and nationalism amongst the Palestinian Arabs. Nothing unites a people more than a threat on the home. I think history points that out pretty clearly. You attack somebody's house, even people who don't like each other in that house fight together. It's like on the submarine I served on, there were guys that we couldn't stand on the boat, but only we could be mean to them. If you were mean to them, we'd kick your butt. So we have a very, very, very culturally diverse country, America is. And I'm not talking color, I'm talking culturally diverse. I would find it hard pressed for anybody to come up with the American culture. A synthesized American culture would be difficult. Don't waste your time thinking about it now. We can have this discussion. But fly planes into our buildings, we're American. It just has that effect. In the 1800s, this was your ethnic breakdown of Palestine. It was 86% Muslim, 10% Christian, 4% Jewish. It pretty much kind of followed your religious populations of that part of the world. and of the Jewish population at large. World War I, 1914 to 1919. Oh, look, now they're getting fancy. Complicated the matter in Palestine. But it did. Promises were made and then broken because, Europe, war, independent states, if you help us fight the Germans, to the Arab countries. But then we found oil. All right, and then we needed oil. But pretty much like the whole idea of Lawrence of Arabia is if those Arab tribes helped fight the Germans, that they would get their own independent states. And they promised it. And then they said, here's really what we said. The Sykes-Picot Treaty, a couple of treaties are coming up here that are going to not only set the stage for, well, lots of things. Oh, fancy, look at that, a rivet in the wall. All right, the Ottoman Empire, this orange part right here. Not to be confused with these orange parts here. Why are all these three things orange? Oh, never mind, it's on, there's a key. All good maps have a key, and what else?
A legend.
That's a key. Well, that's true, that's about maps in general.
I'll write it.
That's a scale. Scales help. But this one doesn't have a compass rose. They got the compass rose on the map. Compass rose. No, name just means it's a political map. All right.
Colors.
Compass rose. I already said it 4 times. All right. The Ottoman Empire was losing control of the region, and the British sought to increase influence in the Middle East, in Southwest Asia, because there's oil, and because of its position geopolitically. It's beneficial if we have influence there. It's halfway to China.
And in that context, that area is very,
It was in the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s. It's also a nice way to kind of keep tabs on the Russians because that's their only way out into warm water. That's why Russia wanted this. So it's strategic. The Hussein-McMahon letters, 1915. All right, so here are your different areas of Aleppo, Dar ez-Zor, Damascus, Jerusalem, Beirut. All right, the Mustafa Mari, anyway. In 1915, Hussein McMahon letters assured the Arabs that Britain would protect their claims to Palestine. There. In 1915, there's already going to be a problem with the Zionist movement and the Aliyah who are moving into the Jewish pilgrims and the settlers who are already moving into there, countered with this promise by the British to the Muslims that they will help them out. Britain is prepared to recognize and hold independence of Arabs in all regions lying within the frontiers proposed by the Sharif of Mecca. All regions. You're prepared to do this in 1915. We have Israel. The answer is no. The Arabs joined the British and fought the Ottoman Empire in World War I. There's a very, very long movie, this sweeping epic film from the 1960s called Lawrence Arabia, which is about T.S. Lawrence, who led them and made these promises. He was in the British Army, and he worked with the Army, and he helped lead these people. Oh, there he is. T.E. Lawrence, I'm sorry. Lawrence of Arabia. He looks just like Richard Harris, the guy who played him in the movie. The first Dumbledore. The first Dumbledore played that guy in the 1960s. Sorry, what? Dumbledore's the headmaster of Hogwarts. Yeah, he died. And then Gandalf took his place. He died.
Yeah, I mean, looking at then they put him in.
Yeah, he was also in one of my favorite musicals, Camelot. Anyway, he was Arthur. So T. Lawrence described the Arab revolt as beneficial to us because it matches with our immediate aims, the breaking up the Islamic bloc and defeat basically, it seems like he's using them to work against themselves, to separate them, to help with the Arabs, and to make that place easier to conquer.
Just like the name.
In 1917, the Balfour Declaration, Britain supported the establishment of a Jewish homeland. So 2 years later, yes, you may, this happened. So in 1915, the British government acknowledges that the Arab states, the Muslims will have autonomy in this particular region, just not this part. Sorry. I know there are Muslims living here. Sorry, not sorry. We're going to allow them a homeland in Palestine. That's what the Balfour Declaration states.
So who is Britain working with now? Didn't they just say the same thing they did?
2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Well, they never really put
You also have to remember too that while all that's going on, there's still that the pressure from the Zionist movement. They're still moving into Israel. Like that didn't stop. So they're starting to petition and go talk to government leaders. They're going to go talk to the United States. They're going to talk to all kinds of people about having this established. So it's going on at the same time. It's one of those things that makes. Yes, Ben.
So if they were supporting Palestine and Palestine was helping them, why would they suddenly support a Jewish homeland in Palestine?
It was politically prudent.
What do you mean?
And isn't Israel only like a part of Palestine?
The land of like Ben H just said, because I'm recording this, I don't want to give last names. The land of Palestine is larger than what will become Israel, except that before it becomes Israel, other things are going to be created. They're going to create Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and they're going to keep cutting and cutting and cutting it. The people who were working with the Arabs were more than likely the military. And the whole time, as I was talking to another one of your classmates here in the back of the room, the whole time that the Zionist movement is going on, England's trying to adjudicate a war. They're trying to fight a war. So if they can get these Arab groups to help fight the Ottoman Empire, that's beneficial. If they can get Jewish support for the war effort, I mean, maybe that's what I've read it a long time ago, then it's worth the effort. But what this is also showing you is how fluid this part of the world is, and how can I say this is unbiased as possible? That there are three parties involved in all of these situations: Jews, Arabs, and neither. And the neither seem to be pulling the strings. So keep that in mind too. Because many people in the United States, many people in England, many people in Europe are not sympathetic to the Jewish cause. Remember, they killed Jesus. If you're a devout Catholic in 1917, they're responsible. Roman Catholic Church, the Pope says so. So it's not this widespread sympathy that we get, mainly because the event has yet to occur. Right now, it's all just political and trying to win World War I and trying to take care of as many things as possible while you're stuck in Western Europe. For lack of a really cogent answer. Let's see. I have much pleasure convening to you on behalf of His Majesty's government the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to, approved by the cabinet. Palestine, nation home of the Jewish people, nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. So there was that. They were free to create a Jewish state, but they could not impinge on the rights of the people who weren't Jewish, who were living there. Stay with us, Cadence. It's Monday, I know. It's cloudy, it's raining, it's going to be stormy. I know. It's great weather for sleeping. So there was a caveat. which means one of two things. It either changes between now and 1948, spoiler alert, or the Jews just didn't care. And I'm really hoping it was the former. All right.
What?
Former, not the latter. British had promised both Jews and Arabs a Palestinian homeland. Problem. Treaty of Versailles gave Britain control of Palestine, angering both groups. There you go. I told you. Jews, Arabs, and others. The lightly shaded area is what is now Israel. That whole area is Palestine and Transjordan, or across the Jordan. That's the Jordan River. All right.
Wait,
Yeah.
where's the Israel?
The light, this one.
Oh, I thought Palestine was bigger. I didn't know Israel took
The
up.
Palestinian land was bigger, but by the time we get to Israel, that's it. Yeah. Okay.
So.
Oh.
So Palestine's this area, but it's also a country.
It's not a country.
So it's an area.
It's a state. It's a nation. It's a nation within a state. It is a people without a country. It is analogous to the Kurds. Yes, ma'am.
So did they have a side, like, or was it just like Palestine? They did.
Then Palestine. One land. Yep. Everybody living there is Palestinian. After World War I, it's Palestine and Transjordan, and then whoever lives there is probably still Palestinian when the war first ends. Then they become Jordanian over time.
Like in the 17th era, or just like.
They were playing them against each other. Ben,
What's the dark orange area?
contested land. Britain had promised both. Oh, we're talking about that. Okay. King Faisal of Iraq and the Zionist, I think it's Khayyam Weizmann. These are the two people who kind of rule and set here. Like, here's Iraq here, British mandate. Syria is a French mandate. Remember, all this land was either German or Italian. And remember, when you lose a war, you lose all that stuff. So, you know, now Europe's involved. Okay, here we have the red dots, Palestinian towns. The black dots, mixed towns. The big blue dots are, well, all the blue dots are Zionist towns. Notice they're all here around Tel Aviv. There's Acre. Acre was an old Crusader town that was created, the Crusader kingdom. Let's see, where is, oh, there's Jerusalem. Oh, look, it's mixed. Uh-huh. Jerusalem is not supposed to be the capital. The Jews want it recognized as the capital of Israel. The UN said it can't be because it is too important to three major religions, and we're just not going to do it. It's divided into four quarters. Our former president said, nope, I'm going to recognize it. Yeah.
So, like, what would you say is like the capital? Like,
Tel Aviv is the capital. Tel Aviv is the political capital of Israel. All right, Tel Aviv. Mr. Story map test. That was if you would do capitals. That's what I would. That's the acceptable answer. All right. So this is 1920 Palestinian area, not Israel yet. Still Palestine. And keep asking the questions. I love it. Jewish immigration to Palestine increased after World War I, led to Arab revolts so that they would stop settlement. See, NIMBY doesn't care who you are. That means not in my backyard. The interesting thing in all of this same guy. That's Sam, stay with us, brother. It's not like you went to Universal in Tokyo and you're dealing with jet lag. All right. In 1920, there was one Jew for every 10 Arabs. By 1947, the eve of the creation of Israel, it was one of every two.
Say it here.
Well, yeah, well, because 48 is when Israel was created. So yes.
Can't know if it's like-
Literally the night before? Dude, come on. No. Shortly before becoming Israel. At the dawn. Yeah, okay. A riot broke out. The people began to run about with stones were thrown at the Jews. I saw a Zionist soldier covered in dust and blood. Afterwards, I saw one Arab approach a Jewish shoeshine boy who hid behind the sack, take his box and beat him over the head. He screamed and began to run, his head bleeding, all shouted, Muhammad's religion was born with the sword. I immediately walked into the municipal garden, told, delegated, and depressed by the madness of humankind. In 1930, Hitler's anti-Semitic policies in Germany accelerated the Zionist movement. What? They didn't want to stay? But Hitler brought the Olympics. All right. After the Holocaust during World War II, many nations focused on the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. So I guess if the Arab states really don't want to be mad at somebody, it shouldn't be England or the United States. Germany. I'm not being serious, by the way. The Nazi Holocaust, which engulfed millions of Jews in Europe, proved anew the urgency for the reestablishment of the Jewish state. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Which would solve the problem of Jewish homelessness by opening the gates to all Jews and lifting the Jewish people to equality in the family of nations. It would solve the problem of Jewish homelessness at the expense of another's home. And, you know, this is not unique to Palestine, if you paid any attention to this course.
Like highly.
Well, okay, what I mean is that the idea of creating a state out of nothing and displacing people who were there first did not begin in 1948. That's the point I'm trying to make. All right, stay with us, Mr. Carter. All right. In 1948, the United Nations promoted plans to partition Palestine. Both the Jews and the Arabs would have a homeland. That was the idea. Jews in brown, Arabs in yellow. That was the plan, to divide it.
Why divide it like that and not just chop it in?
Settlements, look at where the Jews are living. Yes, of course. Now, this idea made exactly how many people have?
Zero.
That's a good answer. All right. Well, no, that's right. No one likes a compromise. Nobody wins in a compromise. You just don't fire guns yet. Well, wait. We will. The partition of Palestine. Who favored the plan? All those in green. Who abstained or did not vote? Those people. Who opposed the plan? Well, look at where they live. There's a large Muslim population in India, and it's not Pakistan yet. I mean, I don't know why it's so red. Unless they really opposed it. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why it's red. It is. I said, I don't know. Like I said, unless they just really opposed it.
What if abstain? Why did Cuba not let it? Yeah.
Cuba's communist.
What if abstain?
To abstain means not to vote. I couldn't, to pull a Ben C. I couldn't decide. Right, not voting. But this is these are countries voting, so they're probably, let's not be, it's 1948, it's post World War II. They're in the middle of a revolution in 48. That's Yugoslavia, enough said. England, England's conflicted because they promised them both. So they're not going to vote. And then these other countries here, unless they didn't mean anything to them, or they have things going on that they cannot attend to this UN vote. That's a good question. All right. May 14th, 1948, Israel became a nation named after the ancient Jewish kingdom, despite Arab objection. There just weren't enough objecting votes. The ultimate example of gerrymandering is the UN. When lines are fixed so that elections are basically fixed. I'll explain.
You can say whoever you want, man. They
Based on how they've carved up districts, you can carve up a district so like you can make it some bizarre shape. It doesn't make any sense. So you get all these Republicans by how you draw the district to be in one area. So they're always going to win the Republican. That's what it is. It's gerrymandered here because the Security Council, there are 5 permanent members. And if one votes no, it's no. If the entire UN votes yes and one permanent member of the Security Council votes no, it's a no-go. And in 1948, you had the Soviet Union and you had America as the permanent members, and they're still there. So just because they can't stand each other, they're going to ruin other people's lives. It's a policy.
Permanent member because they're going to be there forever.
They're permanent members because they start. It's them and it's France and England and Germany. Like there's a Security Council with permanent members, and then they rotate to let other countries get a turn at the wheel. All right, Israel's Declaration of Independence. State of Israel is born. There's the first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion. There's Theodor Herzl, the brainchild of all this, the Zionist guy. U.S.-Israeli relations. Oh, by the way, the day Israel is created, it is invaded. It is invaded by Arab states. The very day. Yes.
Is that the 7 Years' War? Or is that only the 60s?
There's a
7-day.
There's a 6-day war, 7-day war. Yeah, there's another one in the 60s. And that's over the Suez Canal. All right. There is Truman, our prime minister, the first country to recognize Israeli independence. America. Yeah.
Why is the prime minister so old?
That's who they chose. And he may not be as old as he looks. I mean, I don't know if he was a survivor. Like, I don't know if he was a Holocaust survivor or if he was in Europe during the war. That could age you. I don't know. It's a good question.
Mr. Story,
Yes, Ben.
was the first prime minister elected or appointed?
I'm gonna have to go with appointed. Without knowing, I'm gonna guess to say appointed. Because you'd have to be ready to go day one. And technically speaking, until you're a country, I don't think you can have an election. So hold on. All right. Actually, someone else looked it up. I gotta press on. All right.
That was a good question.
This is a good question. Don't say it. I know. And there is George W. Bush and Prime Minister Omer. We have had a long-standing. Oh yeah, U.S. aid to Israel. This is from 1949 to 96. Okay, that's a big span. Up to 2007, and that's in millions of dollars. That's how much money we have given to Israel. $101,190.8 million.
That's how you do it.
101
Really?
billion.
101 billion or trillion?
Is this in millions or billions?
It's in millions of dollars. So it's $101,000 million.
So, 101. A lot.
A lot.
Wait, what do we get out of Louisiana?
We get a friendly face in Southwest Asia. We get a place to land aircraft.
$100 million.
That's over, over all those years. Well, I mean, what else could we do with $100 trillion in America? Folks. Okay, all right. I don't know. Make our oil not hackable.
You're the greatest station of all time.
No, make our roads work. Have our water clean throughout the country. I don't know. Have it so Russians can't hack our oil. Your gas is about to be $4 a gallon. Infrastructure.
Just hack our oil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the pipeline. Yeah. They messed up distribution from the Gulf to here, to the East Coast. Watch the news, freshies. All right. So we have given them money. Grants, military, and look, grant. They're not even loans. It's free money. That's what a grant is. Did you find the answer to my question, or are you looking at something else?
Well,
Oh, okay.
They were appointed.
Thank you. He was appointed for the first time, Ben.
and it is 100 billion,
It's 100 billion.
not true.
Okay.
Because a
But-
billion's 9 zeros, not,
Okay, fine. But then, is that factored into for inflation?
inflation.
Well, $1 in 1949 is not the same as 2007.
Well, for,
I'm just saying, let's not pull a muscle. All right. Real Americans defend Israel. Okay. Yeah. In May 15th, 1948, surrounding Arab countries attack Israel. Israel successfully defends itself and gets larger.
it's 10% inflation from 1940. So it'd be like 110 billion. 111. Well,
And change. Okay.
And then like World War.
And
what can everyone do now?
There's plenty of food.
It's distribution.
It's distribution and access to it. We got plenty of food. Yeah. We can do all sorts of things. All right, but we have to have the will. Now, Nakaba, the catastrophe that's what it means in Arabic. They call it the catastrophe. Okay, so what I'm looking at here, since I can't read Arabic, is I'm looking at migrations. I'm going to guess Muslims leaving Israel after its creation and after the war, helping it to become less Islamic. After the war, forced migrated from Palestine. Refugees were flown to UN camps and others moved to neighboring countries. 700,000 Arabs driven from Israel. Now remember, the Balfour Declaration. Israel may have a state, but may not impinge or infringe upon the rights of those people living there.
Someone put something.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Did the US help Israel?
I don't know. They probably provided munitions. I don't. Yes, sir. Yes, you may. How? You're not playing this. Okay. UN camps supposed to be temporary, but became permanent homes for Arabs. Thousands of them died in these impoverished conditions. Oh gosh, no, don't worry about this. It's just a long quote talking about what people saw. I was shocked by what I saw. Whenever I went, I saw Palestinians who've been forced from their homeland by the creation of Israel and the fighting that ensued in 48. More than 1 million Arabs had suddenly become homeless, depending on the UN relief fund. Refugee camps lined the roads, tents so close they seemed like Canvas City. Is your family faring well? I asked our cook, a Palestinian woman from one of the refugee camps. She dropped her eyes. It's not like before. From the camp, we can see the tops of the lemon and orange trees on our old farm. On our land, it was always green and warm, but here in the desert, it's very cold. Tell me about your husband, I pressed. What work does he do? The woman's eyes dropped even lower. At home, he was a farmer. Here in the desert, there's nothing for him. Israel developed rapidly as more Jews moved to Palestine, and the United States offered aid. In 1956, the Suez Canal crisis, Israel attacked Egypt, and Egypt, an Arab nation. Actually, yes, it is. But it's also, anyway, it nationalized the Suez Canal, meaning what?
They made it part of the government.
That's right, the government controlled it. It was Egypt's canal. It ended in a ceasefire. Right. They just agreed not to shoot each other anymore.
Just victory.
Yeah. But Egypt, hold on one second here. But Egypt does have a history of, there's a group of Christians called the Copts, C-O-P-T, and Coptic Christianity is entrenched, ensconced in Egypt. In fact, during the Arab Spring, which we'll get to either today or at the new one, or one of those, for the next 3 days, the Muslims would be called to prayer, and members of the Coptic faith surrounded them to give them protection. And then when the Copts wanted to pray, the Muslims surrounded them and kept them from being attacked. So there is a sort of homeostasis, and yeah, but it doesn't work relationship. That's not the right thing. All right. Anyway, it's congenial. This is Gamal Nasser. He is the Egyptian president. This is the where the fighting took place along the canal zone. British paratroopers, French paratroopers, Israeli paratroopers, all fighting the Egyptians because everybody needs the canal open. If you really want to mess things up, just jackknife a tanker. Just, thank you, ma'am. In '64, the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, led by Yasser Arafat, sought the creation of a Palestinian state. So the drive for their own country begins in '64. Yasser Arafat died a decade ago, I think. Like, he was a part of this for a long time. I grew up with Yasser Arafat. Not with him, but like, we didn't hang. I don't think they let me teach. All right. Our basic aim is to liberate the land from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River. The Palestinian Revolution's basic concern is the uprooting of Zionist entity from our land and liberating it. Our land. The Zionist, the Jew, our land. The PLO has used terrorist tactics and fought a guerrilla war against Israel at home and abroad. Oh, I see. Who's supplying them weapons?
The Soviets.
Soviets.
They got that.
Because they got the Anton Kalashnikov 47.
Like, you don't have to, like,
Probably older than 4.
It's not 8.
7. No, 10. Yeah, anyway.
Regardless, he's holding that.
Well, it's from the Mediterranean South. It is not uncommon. The setback, as far as the Arabs were concerned, Nakash, Naksa, I mean. Dome of the Rock. Israel territory before the 6-Day War, held by Israel after the 6-Day War. So Israel grew. This was Egypt.
Egypt had it.
That was part of Egypt, yeah.
Because of Egypt's not there.
In the Six-Day War, Israel defeated Arabs and made territorial gains, the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. The Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. Those are in the news. They're always in the news. They're in the news today. Yes, ma'am.
Seems like once Israel was created and they got help and won that first war from the like
Thing of 48 or whatever. Yeah.
like it kind of seems like they were just ahead of them. That whole-
I think so because, well, I mean, with the exception of Egypt, who had been a state, these are all new places as well. This is post World War II, so they're all trying to figure out how to develop economically.
So, if the Sinai Peninsula belonged to Egypt and the West Bank, my guess belonged to like Jordan and Golan Heights probably belonged to Syria. Where did the Gaza Strip belong? Probably.
73, Egypt and Syria attack Israel on a Jewish holiday. This is the Yom Kippur War. And Israel defended itself again with U.S. aid. In 79, Israel Prime Minister Menachem Begin, right here, and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat met in the United States to discuss peace. Okay, I'm going to show you this right here. Is probably round zero for my nerdism. I watched this on TV. I knew of this summit. Jimmy Carter is the president. I knew of this summit, and I knew what happened next because I watched it live on TV as well. Well, it was on the news that day. But this is a big deal. The fact that Israel and Egypt are trying to discuss peace in this region. This is the first of many, many ongoing, ever continuing peace talks between countries in this part of the world. That's not, I said that, it's Begin. The Camp David Accords formally ended war between Egypt and India and Israel. Anwar Sadat was killed by an Egyptian army soldier because they did not like the fact that he agreed to stop shooting Israel.
Wait,
Anwar Sadat is the guy by the American flag, closest to the American flag.
you have to do that, or
No, went back home, was watching the military parade, and was assassinated watching the military parade. Because they dared to contemplate peace in that region. You have to remember, and as best we can understand it, I'm never going to be able to understand it. I'm never in a million years going to know what it's like to be a Jew, period, let alone a Jew from the 1940s and 50s, or the 30s, or the 20s, or just never going to know. Two, I'm never going to know what it's like to live in that part of the world and to be a Muslim and to be Arab, for an oversimplification, and understand what that's like to get no help from countries who said they would help you. Nor am I ever going to know what it's like, at least I don't think, to live somewhere where someone can come and say, you know what, this is ours now, go. Like, we're never, more than likely, never, ever, ever going to experience that. Whoops. So to try and wrap our, sorry about that, to try and wrap our heads around all this and to be objective and not to be trite or trivial is really a challenge. There's the assassination. Yeah, during the parade, they just walk up and move him down. In 1987, young Palestinians launched the Intifada, an uprising against Israeli troops by throwing rocks and making homemade bombs. Well, more to the point, that's basically what they have. It's also not beneficial to the Palestinians, and this is historical and this is contextual, that the Arab states neighboring them, a lot of them aren't any better off. They just aren't being bothered. Now, Afghanistan has issues in 87, Russia's inside it. It's Russia's Vietnam War, the war in Afghanistan. But Iran, Iraq, like they're Muslim states. They don't have this threat, and they're not economically or politically or militarily sound enough in a way to offer support to the Palestinians. And if these Palestinians are Sunni, Iran doesn't care. Stay with us, Cadence. Yeah.
Why they would swap, you know?
Because they know who their enemy is, and they're doing it just to be a jerk. Either that, or they could very well be Iran. They don't support the Nazis. It's ironic that they're being treated like the Jews were by the Nazis, by the Jews. Yeah, that's the irony.
Are there any going to death camps?
They're long before death camps. It was unfortunate to be a Jew. Couldn't own a business. You weren't a citizen. Couldn't vote. You lost your property. Long before death camps, you lost all the other rights. They're losing land, houses. They're knocking them down and building houses, shrinking the West Bank, shrinking all those parts of Israel. So, or of Palestine. Like that's where they are in 87. More irony, David Goliath. Drips with it. In 1993, the Oslo Accord saw a direct talk between, that's Yasser Arafat, the leader of the PLO, you can tell by the hairdressing, and Yitzhak Rabin, Israel's prime minister. Again, another attempt at trying to figure out peaceful resolution of this issue. That's 93. Israel agreed to allow Palestinians in Israel a degree of self-rule, and the PLO agreed to stop violence against Israel. So you see the brown or Palestinian cities; those are inside Israel. You see the Palestinian villages. Then you see Israeli settlement in military areas and state lands. This is all in the West Bank. It's supposed to be Palestinian. And those Jerusalem was carved out.
Roughly when was that?
73. No, 93. The Oslo Accord was designed to eventually create a separate Palestinian state, and they shared a Nobel Peace Prize for this effort. So it was an attempt to make a Palestinian state. It's there again. (1995) Rabin is assassinated by Israel, opposed to peace with the PLO. 20 years prior, Anwar Sadat, an Egyptian Muslim, is assassinated by his own army for trying to bring peace to a region by daring to cross aisles with the Israelis. 1995, Yitzhak Rabin is assassinated by an Israeli for daring to cross the aisle to talk to the PLO. Let alone that while there's a ceasefire, nobody's dying. But we can't have that. There can only be, I'm sorry, there can only be one reason you don't want that to happen. You don't want the other person to exist. Or you want them gone from your land, basically. (2000), a new Camp David summit was held with the hopes of peace, but it was interrupted because Israel bombed a suspected Palestinian terrorist cell in 2000. Again, there's Sadat, there's the next leader of Israel, and that is Barak. I can't pronounce his first name. I just know it's Barak. And then there is Yasser Arafat. Okay? 2003, a roadmap for peace is created. This is the plan, again, to establish a Palestinian state. But the PLO had to stop fighting first. It's somewhat analogous to what the IRA had to do in Ireland. Palestinian Liberation Organization? Good question. All right. We're almost finished. Good. No extra notes at night. Peace requires a new and different Palestinian leadership so that a Palestinian state can be born. I call on Palestinian people to elect new leaders. This is from George Bush. So we can't do it if Arafat's your man. That's what he's saying. So they have to be serious about this.
For the one in 2000, that ended because they bombed.
And I suspected, yes. Then, so here is the roadmap for peace. In 2006, Palestinians elect members of Hamas to their government. The problem with that is the United States labels Hamas as a terrorist group. I think it's pretty. I'm not gonna lie. I think Arab script is cool. All right.
What does that say?
I don't read Arabic. You can't, it's not like any alphabet. You can't sit there and turn your head and find letters.
No, I'm trying to like pick up the different work of the list.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because like I don't think that's like a sentence. I think it's like an image.
This is Hamas. In 2008, Israel attacked Hamas, Palestinian terrorist group strongholds in retaliation for rocket and mortar attacks. This has been going on my entire life. Rockets back and forth at cities where people live. Back and forth. My entire life. Rocket fired by state militant from the Gaza Strip flies towards the Israeli target. Israel is building walls around Palestinian camps. Critics argue Israel hasn't done enough for Palestinian people living in poverty.
Why would they want to help people and make shooting missiles at them?
Well, why don't they stop shooting missiles at them?
It's just like a back.
So then stop with the full. What was it Gandhi said? An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
But do you think like if Israel stopped like shooting this attack, then they'd stop?
Right away? No. Would they eventually look? Just like I said last week, all this change is generational. Anything. There's so much history here. I don't know if this is salvageable. Anyway, it's just so old. 2010 decides meet in the United States, but little progress was made. No reason to anticipate any resolution anytime soon. There's Netanyahu, and there's Abbas, and that was. And I'm glad that they did not put an arrow on the guy in the middle. Okay. That is the Arab-Israeli conflict. Notice that most of the stuff we've spoken of here, don't stop moving. With respect to the Middle East is Israel, because I don't know if there is a conflict in the Middle East without Israel. I don't know. I mean, maybe the West can invent one, but I don't know. And I don't know how we get out of it. So that's today. I'm not saying it can't. It just takes smarter people than me. Tomorrow, we will finish strong. We will end Unit 8. Tonight, I will record the next to last unit about Latin American stability and the threat of communism in Latin America and things of that sort. And then tomorrow, we'll just wrap this unit up with a bow. And then Wednesday, we'll start Unit 9. Please pay attention to Canvas this week. Look at the agenda. Look at next week's stuff. When I get an answer about Thursday, I'll let you know. The Kahoots start tomorrow. If any of you guys want to hang out with us when the lunch bell rings to start doing the review. That's all I have for today. Thank you all. I know I have grades to put in. I'm working on it. And let me know which thing you want to do with respect to KCI 8 and 9. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Oh, and just because these end in Crash Course and I don't show them doesn't mean you can't watch them. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Have a good day.
Thanks, Ben.